Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Golf Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Garrison McDaniel, and we have a great show for you guys today, where we will be getting into the course breakdown for the Detroit Golf Club. That will be our first segment of the night, as the Rocket Mortgage Classic is underway in Detroit. My next segment will be talking about Thursday's leaderboard from the Rocket Mortgage, what names stand out, some of the more notable names down the leaderboard. Our third segment of the night, we'll be talking about Seth Woe. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, I apologize. It's either Woe or Woff. But he is the CEO of PGA of America. He has now stepped down from his role as the CEO of PGA of America. And we'll be just talking about that and what that means for the golf world. Our fourth segment of the night, we will be talking about a 15-year-old who is in the field this weekend making his PGA Tour debut. His name's Miles Russell. Had a not bad day today, so we'll talk about his round, talk about how he got here, and just who he is. And then in the final segment of the night, as we always do for Thursday, our fifth segment is always my picks and predictions for the tournament that is underway. So it will be my picks and predictions for the Rocket Mortgage Classic. But before we get into all that, as always, guys, if you want to become a bigger part of the show, help support, and as my hair is just all over the place right now, if you want to help support the GSMC Golf Podcast more than you guys already do just by watching it, use the tips and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net. It goes a long way to help support the creators here at the GSMC Sports Network and is greatly appreciated. But as I say that, we'll get right into our first segment of the night. And as always, I do apologize that it's a little bit small. That's just the screen I'm working with here. It's a lot of information to show you all at once here. But this is the whole breakdown. Don't threat, though. I understand it's a little bit difficult to see, but that's why I am here to let you guys know what you guys are looking at. And for the audio listeners, you don't even have to worry about what you're seeing right now. But for the Rocket Mortgage Classic, this golf course plays very easy. It plays one stroke under par per day or per round. A lot of guys were able to get off to good starts today. Sorry, I'm off to a bad start. A lot of guys were able to get off to good starts today here at the Rocket Mortgage Classic. A lot of low scores. We'll be talking about the leaderboard in the next segment, but talking about the holes, we're going to start, as always, at hole 1. It is a 392 par 4. This par 4 is one that guys can really go get. I'm going to be using Akshay Bhatia's scorecard as reference. He was the day one leader, and I'll be talking to you about what he did on each hole. He plays pretty conservatively, so you can bet that most of these guys kind of play similar to him, if not even a little bit more aggressive. So what he did on hole number 1, he went, I believe it's driver, but he pulled back on the driver a little bit. He went 290 into the pin and then had a 100 shot onto the green right here for hole 1. He was able to fly it right into the middle of the green. It is the 11th easiest hole. 11th hardest, so 8th easiest hole in the golf course, as it does play under par, but it only plays under par by about 1/10 of a stroke. We saw 2 eagles today on this hole, but that was because of hole outs. They weren't guys that were able to drive the green. It is 392, very hard to drive this green. You have fairway bunkers on the left-hand side of this par 4 as well that you need to avoid. But if you fly the ball about 300 yards, you should be able to avoid them pretty easily. So pretty simple par 4, just straight away. Narrow fairway, but that's kind of theme here at the Detroit Golf Club. Next hole is a 448 par 4 as well. This is tied 11th easiest or hardest hole on the golf course. It is tied with the second hole as 11th hardest hole on the golf course. Both play 0.12 strokes under par. There were 37 birdies on this hole and 16 bogeys on the second hole. Akshay Bhatia went driver on this one, 315. There is a fairway bunker directly in the middle of this fairway. I would say it's about 350 though, so a lot of these guys don't really have to worry about getting it with their driver. Maybe if we had a Bryson DeChambeau or Rory McIlroy in the field, they would have to worry about it, but we don't have those drivers this weekend. Scotty Scheffler, I know, can also drive it pretty far. But don't have to worry about it as those guys aren't in the field. This is a shorter field this weekend. It's not a signature event. It's just regular old Rocket Mortgage Classic. So we do see Ricky Fowler in the field. However, we don't see those bigger names. The next hole, another par 4, 402 yards. Sorry. Oh, sorry. This par 4 plays 402 yards. Basically, all of these holes are playing very similar. Drive at about 300 yards. You'll have a 100 shot into the pin. And then you just got to make your putts around the green. Akshay Bhatia started his round by only making one of those 3 putts that he had, making all greens in regulation so far through the first 3. Then you get on to a very long par 4. I saw some guys be able to attack this one be able to drive the ball about 330 and then have a 300-yard 3-wood shot or 270, 283 wood shot into the front of the green. However, Akshay Bhatia elected to go a little bit simpler on this, kind of laying up here. He takes his first driver shot, 276. I assume that's with his 3-wood. And then 220 about with his second shot, just flying over a bunker on the left-hand side. Goes over the bunker, 220, and then he has an 125-yard, probably a 50-degree wedge for him onto the green, gets it to the middle of the green, and is able to one-putt it for a 4 to get another birdie. So Akshay Bhatia off to a 2-under start, playing these holes very conservatively, but I do think that they are just the right way to play him. Then you have the 6th hardest hole on the golf course, a par 3, 175. This is when these guys get these stock yardages like 170 or 180 for these par 3s, makes it a lot easier. Akshay Bhatia flies this ball exactly 170 yards and then has 15 feet for a birdie, misses the birdie putt, gets to the par, and that's still a good result on a hole that plays as one of the only red holes on this entire golf course. 5 and 6 is probably your second most difficult two-hole runs that these guys do face. 5 and 6, and then we'll get to 11 and 12 later here. But once we go on to number 6 after the par 3. It is the hardest hole on the golf course. A little dog leg right a bit. It does play kind of straight away if you're able to fly it. A difficult part about these holes is that there's a lot of trees. This plays like a very Midwest golf course. If you guys have ever played golf in, I'm from Ohio, so I played, every single round of golf I played has been in the, has been around Ohio. And one thing that always has stood out to me is how many trees there are on every golf course that I play in. I always find myself hitting into trees, and there's a reason for that. Just the Midwest golf course style has a lot of trees, and you have to deal with that. And Detroit is right in the middle of that, and these guys are facing a lot of trees here, so they got to make sure they hit fairways. Akshay Bhatia did a fantastic job with that. But what makes this par 4 so difficult is it's 480. Once you drive it about 300 yards, if they do try to attack with the driver, you have about 170 into the pin, and then this green plays a little bit. My apologies. This green plays a little bit more difficult than other ones do as well. So this one was one that guys dropped a lot of strokes on, being the most difficult one. It played 0.3 or 0.3 of a stroke above par, so a more difficult one, as I mentioned. Then you're going to one of the easier holes on the golf course, a tie for 17th hardest hole, so second easiest hole on the golf course. It's a par 5, 546. If you have a good drive, go 300 yards, you'll be able to attack this green into have chance at eagles. Today we saw on this hole 4 eagles. We saw 73 birdies. We saw only 9 bogeys. This one played very easy. Played almost a half stroke under par. So this was one that guys were really able to go out and attack. Next, going back to the par 4s, it's the par 4 8, 374. It's a dog leg right. Goes pretty, like I want to say 60 degrees right throughout this fairway. So you do have to lay up here if you try to attack the fairway. You can probably get it close to the green, about 330, go 40 yards and have a good wedge shot. But Akshay Bhatia elected to go 260 as something with Akshay Bhatia. He loves his 3-wood off the tee. We see it a lot here on his scorecard. Next is the fourth hardest hole on the golf course, par 3, ninth. Plays 201 yards. Is just a straightaway 200-yard par 3. You just got to make your putt on that one. Par 4, 10th, 424, tied for the 8th hardest hole on the golf course. It's a dogleg left. If you end up in the green on the right, if I can recall from the broadcast today, there's a lot of trees on the right, and with the cart path as well on the right. You don't want to miss far. So these guys are able to attack this fairway, aim left here, and it works. Akshay Bhatia, this is one of the holes that he let it fly 320 yards and was able to get a good second shot. This guy does not miss many greens in regulation, as I only think he's missed 2 so far in the day. Next, you're going to the third hardest hole on the golf course, a 217-yard par 3 on 11. Got to make your putt on that one. Next, 500-yard par 4. This is the second hardest hole on the golf course. You fly this ball 300 yards. Then you have 200 yards into the pin just to make par or just to make a birdie if you can one putt. Akshay Bhatia had a fantastic round with his second shot, or with his green in regulations, and he makes this green in regulation, was pretty close to the hole, able to get a birdie on one of the more difficult holes. And that kind of started his great run at the end of the day. Next is tied for 8th hardest hole on the golf course, par 4, 400. A lot of these holes kind of playing similarly. He's taking 3-wood in, going about 130. Feels very confident with that, probably for him pitching wedge in. Next, par 5, 14th. This is the third of what is 4 par 5s on this golf course. This golf course plays as a par 72. These guys get very low scores on this course, and this is why. Akshay Bhatia kind of was all over the place with this par 5, and he still birdies it. He sends his drive 300 yards, but to the left rough, sends his second shot to 25 yards to the right rough, and then finally gets onto the green and is able to two-putt for is able to one-putt for the birdie. Next is a par 3. This is the 14th hardest hole on the golf course, so 5th easiest hole on the golf course. Par 3, 150, about 145 it played today, but if it's in the middle of the green, it's a 150. The pin being next for a par 4, 16th, 458, 7th hardest hole on the golf course. This is one that can play pretty easy if you just hit the fairway. There is fairway bunkers about 300 yards on either side of the fairway, so just hit it to the middle there, be accurate, you'll be good. This golf course is made for the accuracy, not made for distance, and we saw it today. Then you go to a par 5, 17th. That is extremely eagleable. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to make it a word. If you are able to fly your driver about 315, 320, you will then have a 250-yard shot into the green, and that's kind of comfortable for these guys. For me, not even close, but for these guys, absolutely. Akshay Bhatia ended up being in the right rough off of the tee here and was still able to get a eagle. Very impressive from him. And then par 4, 18th is how these guys finish their round. It's a very scenic hole, this par 4, 18th. Fly the ball about 290 yards, and then you have about 175 onto the green and into the pin. It goes. And Akshay Bhatia ended his day with 4 under in the last 3 holes. A great run to end his day out. Very impressive stuff from Akshay Bhatia, but that's how this golf course plays. Now we're going to get into our second segment, talking about the leaderboard breakdown from Thursday, now that you guys know about the holes.